Hi, it's Steve Morrison here, and you're listening to Chat with Chaps, chatting Millwall, come rain or shine.
Hello, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're listening from. This is the next episode of the Opposition View, where we're going to be previewing a game against a side that Mr. Morrison certainly knows very much in Leeds United. Fresh off the back of our really impressive 1-0 victory over Burnley, leaving us seventh in the table, we welcome fierce rivals Leeds to the Den on Wednesday night under the lights and possibly a light show, but we won't talk about that tonight. And we welcome a Leeds fan and also a very good friend of mine, Mr. Mike Gray. Mike, welcome to the show, mate.
Thank you very much. Very happy to be here.
Yeah, good man, good man. It's much appreciated for you to come on. So let's address the elephant in the room, Mike. Leeds. That accent doesn't sound like you're from Leeds. Tell us where that connection comes from.
Yeah. I've got a very southern accent, as you can tell. But yeah, my mum and her side of the family are all from up north. I don't actually remember starting to support Leeds, but there's pictures of me as a small kid outside Ellen Road with the kit on. So yeah, my dad was more into rugby, so I ended up taking on Leeds. And I'm very happy. I'm one of the only ones down south that supports Leeds, so it's good to be different.
It is good to be different, mate, and it sounds a similar story to most Millwall fans, where you kind of you had no choice, right? It was the family, and that's what ended up with. Well, so Leeds obviously narrowly missed out on promotion last season. Just talk to us a little bit, mate, about how how the season finished, how you felt, and kind of the not rebuild, but the summer changes.
Yeah, I mean, it was tough. I was at Wembley for the final. Went down with my mum, some other family members. Was excited for the day, but I knew it was going to be a tough game. Those playoff finals are usually only won by a goal margin, and we never really got going in that final. Obviously, they scored after, I don't know, was it 20, 25 minutes, and from then on, I kind of knew where it was heading. But it was tough. We had a great season. I just think it was a crazy championship season. I mean, how many years since three teams had 90 points or more? So, we had a bad start, a slow start. It was obviously a big rebuild following us coming down, lost a lot of players, loads of players with stupid clauses that meant they could go on loan elsewhere. So it was a big rebuild from the start, and it was always catch up. And I think we did pretty well to almost get into the automatics, but playoffs are a lottery, and yeah, we failed at the last hurdle. So yeah, it was tough to take, but overall good season.
Yeah. I mean, obviously we were having our own issues at the bottom end of the table, and I think over the summer you lost quite a few players, right? So I think noticeable. Obviously, it was quite a few, but the two that stick out for me was Crescencio. Somerville obviously went to our other fierce rivals in West Ham, and of course Rutter, who went to Brighton. 40 million you got for him. You did a bit of business. I think I was quite impressed with being able to sign Joe Rodon permanently. But what would you make of your summer transfer window?
Again, it was obviously we had a heartbreak from the final, and for me, one of the things that I knew that meant we were going to lose some of those big names. They weren't going to hang around. Obviously, Archie Gray, very disappointing that he left as well.
Spurs,
he was to Spurs. Obviously, you got a good amount of money for him. It was his first ever professional season, but I think he's a real talent. Obviously, lost him. We then lost Somerville, who was obviously Championship Player of the Season. Always dangerous, goals and assists. And then when Ruta left, it was kind of the final kick in the teeth. Like, he was that player that I don't think you can't replace that at Championship level. He had that something special that he, the way he could take players on and do things that no one else could really do. And you just can't sign that, level of quality in the Championship. So when he left, I was feeling very deflated, and wasn't particularly hopeful for the season ahead. But we made a few decent signings, like the central midfield area. We were pretty light in. Brought in Tanaka and Rothwell, who actually was on loan at Southampton last year to cover kind of the midfield. Signed a right back in Bogle from Sheffield United. It wasn't amazing transfer window, if I'm being honest, but we had a couple of players that have come back from loan. Brendan Aronson, who was out in the Bundesliga, he decided that he was going to stick with us this season. So even though we didn't sign a lot of new external players, we did have a few returning players that, I'd say it was a decent but not spectacular from the recruitment side of things, and obviously disappointing to lose those star players.
And I just feel like, especially the start you've made, that because I look at your recruitment, you didn't, as you just said there wasn't any like, oh wow, big huge signing, but it almost felt that it enabled other players that were already in the squad to come in and take the front and centre spot. Like Willie Nonto, who, as a Millwall fan, I don't really know. I just don't like him. I don't know why, but it's probably because I'm jealous. But he's such a good player at this level, and then to have him and Daniel James on the wing. I think they started for you, didn't they, on Saturday with Aronson just behind Pirro. I mean, it's not a bad front four, is it?
No, exactly. And I think this level, like, we've got players that are better than the championship level. So even though we lost some of those star players, like you say, Dan James, he's probably a bottom half Premier League player, really. Yeah. Nonto is above this level. I think Brendan Aronson is a little bit above this level as well. So yeah, we've got the players there still. Just lacking. I don't think any of them are as good as Somerville or Ruta, for example. But overall, we still have a very strong attacking front four.
And one of the players that I think he started the season in the first team, and now he's been on the bench the last few games, is Matteo Joseph, right? He's a youngster. An exciting prospect, or?
Yeah, it was good to see him actually start some games this season. He was kind of, in and around the squad last season, made a lot of appearances off the bench, was getting 5-10 minutes. And yeah, he looked sharp. He knows where the goal is. He can finish. Having said that, he's missed a few chances when he's had them this season. But he's looked good, but he's lost his place recently to Perot. Perot's a strange one for me. He can score, but he doesn't seem to do a lot else. And I think that position is something where we're probably we don't have the firepower, but because of the rest of the attacking players we've got, we're making it work. But we don't have for me, like a standout striker that's quite ready and firing. Despite those two, the numbers from Pirot and Joseph are pretty good, to be fair.
Yeah, and he scored at the weekend, didn't he? Pirot.
He did,
yeah. And just before we talk about your form and that, I think, what do you make of Daniel Farke? I'm going to be honest, I quite like him as a manager. I don't know how Millwall fans will react to me saying that, but I do actually quite like him. And he's certainly got you. You've had a better start to this campaign than you did last season, as you say, sitting in second spot. But what do you make of Daniel Farke and of him as a manager and his style of play and just all round?
Yeah, I think he's done a great job. Even last year, even though we did fall at a final hurdle, he inherited the club in a right mess, to be honest. Like the contract situation, as I mentioned it earlier, with a lot of those players, so much uncertainty about who was going to be there. We had a lot of players who didn't want to be there. And the way he dealt with those last season, just said, look, if you don't want to play for me, I'd rather have someone who's got less ability, but is 100% committed to playing for the club and the shirt. And I think that's what you need in a manager. I think he's a very good leader. He's a good role model, I think. And I think he gets the best out of the players that he's got. And I think you saw that over last season where, we had that, a rough start. And then we kind of went from strength to strength. And, as I say, unlucky not to get promoted. So, yeah, I think he's a very good manager. He's done this before, right? He's been promoted with Norwich twice, won the championship with them. and we've had a very good start to the season. So yeah, I think he's a good manager for this level. Whether if we were to get promoted, if he's the guy to continue, I don't know. Obviously, with Norwich, probably not a fair reflection. They never put any money in. They didn't invest. They didn't really try and stay in the Premier League. But no, I like him as a manager, and he seems to be getting a good tune out of the players at the minute.
Yeah, it certainly appears that way. And I think, look, it's when I take my biases aside, it's very easy to assume if you've got the best squad in the league that you should go up, and it's not as easy as that. And I think Farke, from an outside point of view, seems to be doing a good job and seems to be a good man manager. I can't ever picture him being angry. I don't know why. It's just that he's very softly spoken, so I just can't imagine that. But anyway, who knows? So let's talk about your start then. So I think if I'm right in saying this, and my research is correct, that you're unbeaten in 8.
Mm-hmm.
You have conceded, because I was talking to we were talking about Burnley before, and they were unbeaten in 5, and they'd only conceded 1 goal. You have conceded a few goals in that time. It's not that you're keeping clean sheets every week, but your most recent game was at home to Plymouth. You dispatched them 3-0. It could have been 5 or 6 from what I've watched and read. I think they had one of the lowest XGs ever recorded in the Championship, so they didn't bother you at all. How do you feel about your form coming into this game?
I think it's really strong. Like you say, unbeaten in 8. We've only lost the 1 game in the league, which was to Burnley. I remember watching that game, and we were the dominant team in that game. We gave the ball away, and they scored on a breakaway. So I think we've looked really good. Even the games where we haven't picked up 3 points, obviously Sunderland, we would have won that game if it wasn't for the last minute howler from Melier. I don't know if you saw that, but he basically just you'll have to watch it, mate. He just misses the ball. The ball's bouncing, and he goes to pick it up, and it just bounces straight past him. So that would have been a 3 points against the team at the top of the league. I was at Ellen Road for the 2-0 win over Sheffield United, who I think are, in my opinion, are one of the better teams in the league, one of the stronger teams, and probably will be in the playoffs come the end of the season. We made them look like a bottom half team. We're controlling the games, dominating possession, and at the minute we seem to be, on the most part, being able to break teams down. We are picking up a few too many draws. We had a 0-0 with Bristol City the game before. Obviously we drew with West Brom, but they've been looking like a decent outfit. But I think we look good, and I think majority of games that I watch, we control the game, and we look like we're a level above. Doesn't always mean you're going to win the game, but I think we've got one of the best squads, if not the best squad in the Championship. And if we don't go up, to be honest, it will be I think this season will be a real big failure if we don't go up, because I think the Championship this year is weaker than it was last year, and that's no disrespect to any of the teams, but if you look at the teams that have come down, Luton are just above the relegation zone right now. Burnley, it is Burnley are good. I expect them to be up there. But yeah, I think Leicester and Southampton are stronger than the teams that have come back down. So I'm feeling confident. We at this stage last season we were about 14 points off top, 12 points off second top. So. We're 3 points off top, and we're in a very good position.
Yeah, and I think a lot of what you said there resonates really, because I think, again, we face you on Wednesday. You're clearly a better team than us. I don't think anyone would argue that. I think you'll probably control the game. I think you'll have 60-70% of the ball, but doesn't mean that you win the game. It doesn't mean that you guarantee yourself 3 points. But before I go for your score prediction, mate, I just want to ask you, so who's your one to watch? Like, who's the one that's you think's really going to cause us problems on Wednesday night?
You mentioned earlier, but I think Nonto, I think he last year didn't get as much game time as he probably deserved. Like, for his level of ability to be starting as sub for a good half of the season, maybe even more, just showed you like the quality that we did have. And since Somerville left, Reuter's left, like he is now he's now the main man, and he's stepping up, and he looks confident. He's almost playing in a bit of a free role. Like him and Aronson will sometimes they'll be wide, sometimes they'll come in centrally, pick the ball up, and I think between those two, the quality that they've got and the fact that they seem to be like, you're not sure if he's going to be on either wing centrally. They'll move the defense about, try and cause problems. I think those two are where we're going to win or lose a game. Do you know what I mean? If they're unlocking things, then I think we win. So I would say Nonto, but also a shout out to Aronson as well.
Yeah, it's a pretty tasty duo at this level. I'm sure Nonto's been in the Italian squad, hasn't he? I'm sure he has. To have luxuries like him in the Championship is another level, and I'm sure he scored against us last season. I don't really like to reflect on last season because you absolutely destroyed us 3-0 at home. If you had an area of weakness, Mike, like where do you think Millwall have the opportunity? And it can either be, a particular player or a position or a pattern of play or whatever on the transition. Where's your area of weakness that we can target?
It's got to be set pieces. To be honest, we've never been good at set pieces, attacking them or defending for years, and it's not something that has changed. If you look at our kind of aerial duels one, only Strauch is really kind of winning majority of his duels. Everyone else is. We've got a pretty small team. I think that's an area that we struggle. I think the keeper Melier doesn't instill a lot of confidence in those sort of situations either. He seems to flap at things when it comes in and doesn't look particularly assured. So, and if I'm right in saying Millwall pretty good at set pieces, scored one of the most goals from set pieces like this season. So yeah, it's got to be a set pieces that I think Millwall need to target, wins free kicks, corners, put the ball into the box, put our defence and the keeper under a bit of pressure. Like I say we haven't got the biggest team, so I think that's an area where Millwall can have success.
Yeah, and you're right to say that we're not pretty good at set pieces. However, and any Millwall fans listening to this will agree with me. Our delivery of set pieces this season has been appalling. We have Jake Cooper, one of the biggest players in the league, and obviously scored against Burnley with a header. It is definitely in our armoury, and I do expect us, I could be wrong, but I do expect us to not play Macaulay Langstaff up front and to go with either Josh Coburn or Mihailo Ivanovic, who are more physical presences up front, to give Struijk and Roden a little bit more to think about, because I just don't think this game is for Langstaff. So, yeah, I think set pieces could be. We need to improve our delivery. And if I'm Neil Harris, I'm thinking to myself, right, well, I know Leeds are going to have the ball. So what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and control where you have the ball, so you can have it in your own half as much as you want, which a lot of teams love to do, as we know. We're going to try and keep tight, and then we're going to try and nick it over on the counter, or And I said this in my post-match Burnley. I don't like the terms free hit, because especially at home against a rival club. But having beaten Burnley, I don't think anyone was expecting more than 3 points for Millwall, between those two games. So it gives us a little bit of leeway and maybe a bit more freedom. So we'll see. Yeah. It's going to be a cracker, mate, because it's under the lights, which always has a little bit of extra occasion. Two sides in very good form. You got 12 points from your last 6. I think we've got, is it 10 or 11? So, both in the top 6 of form. So it's going to be an interesting one. And there's supposedly I feel you in on this, mate. So when you hear the boos before the game, you'll know what it's about. We've had some new LED lighting installed, and as part of the agreement or something like that, there is a light show before the game, which is most clubs would bat an eyelid, but Millwall, oh no, that's not Millwall. So it's going to be very, very interesting. But having said all that, give us your head and your heart, or it might be the same, score prediction for Wednesday night.
Yeah, I mean, it's a strange one, because I have to say I haven't watched a lot of Millwall this season. I don't know if that's going to be a surprise, but I haven't done. But I was quite worried. I think I remember chatting to you early on in the season. You were, near the bottom of the table, didn't have too much confidence around the season, but you looks like you turned it around. I mean, what have you won the last 3 games? 1-0, only conceded once in the last 5. So you're obviously well drilled, difficult to break down. And I actually think Leeds can struggle against those sorts of teams when you sit back, put 10 men behind the ball, and play for a 0-0. But I think it's going to be a tough game. We're not particularly good in London either. Our record is pretty terrible. So there's a lot of things that are in your favour, but I think that we will win the game 2-0. I think it will be 0-0 at half time. It'll be difficult to break down, and I think once we get a goal, we might go on to nick another. But I'll go for 2-0.
Okay, 2-0. All right. Well, I'll give my score prediction now. And for those of you that were taking the piss out of my Barnet after the post match, I mean, you're all welcome, because since I've changed my hairstyle, we haven't lost. So you're all welcome, by the way. So therefore, I'm gonna say that's going to continue. I'm going to say that, and this is definitely a head and heart thing. So no, do you know what? I'm going to go 1-1. I'm going to go 1-1. I think you'll score first. I can just see Willie Nonto, 25 yards out, cutting in from the left on his right foot. 1-0. We go 1-0 down, and then we'll get the crowd up, and we'll score a goal either from a corner or a second phase of a corner, and we'll equalise, and it'll be a bit of a tense finish. And being honest, I'd take that. I think 4 points from 2 games with the likes of Burnley and Leeds, for then a difficult trip away to Stoke and then at home to Sunderland. So we play 3 out of the top. Sorry, the top 3 in very quick succession. I would certainly take that. So we shall see, mate. We shall see. We shall see, and we'll have to maybe do this when we come up to Ellen Road.
Yeah, we will. But before we go, I just got one question for you. Obviously, you've had a turnaround in form. You're sitting just below the playoffs. What's the expectations now from the Millwall fans? Are you getting your hopes up, or is this how are you feeling about the season ahead?
It's a really difficult one, because I think it's been such a bizarre and whirlwind of an 18 months at the club, where you cast your mind when you think about what's happened at the club in the last season and a bit. We tragically lost our chairman at the start of last season. We started out the season with Gary Rowett as manager, who was the most pragmatic manager you'll ever come across. He then parted ways. We then went in for an unknown quantity that was the complete opposite of pragmatic, and that didn't work. We then brought Neil Harris back, and we had to perform, he had to perform miracles to keep us in the league, which, when we've had 5, 6, 7 seasons of consistency at this level, that felt a bit alien. Then over the summer, we tragically lose our goalkeeper, number 1 goalkeeper. So another tragedy within the club. We have a complete change of senior management at the club in terms of the non-footballing side. And we start performing really well, but the results aren't there. And it's just such a whirlwind of. So in terms of, I can't even say what my expectations were coming in. I think mid-table was probably where it is. But now, as the seasons and the league starts to take shape with 12 games now, that's a good rough gauge. You start to look at it and you go, you know what? With a bit of consistency and maybe a little bit more added to the squad in January, who knows? Top 6 could be doable. It's not out of reach. It really isn't. So that's the way I'm looking at it. But I think the next 3 or 4 games will really tell us, because we've got you at home, away to Stoke, which is, I mean, it's the joke, isn't it? Can he do it away at Stoke on a whatever? And then home to Sunderland. And I think, if we can get a decent points return out of those 3 games, then why not? It's all to play for. So I think I speak on behalf of most Millwall fans to say that we're fairly happy at the minute. 7th spot, happy days. But who knows? By the time the international break comes around, everything could have changed.
Makes sense. Yeah, it's going to be a a good season, but it's a long season. So, you know, you could be 7th for 1 week and a few weeks later, you could be back down towards the bottom of the table. That's just how the Championship is. But that's why we love it. And it's a good league to be in as a fan, I have to say.
It is. And well, let's see if you remain in it much longer. But Mike, thank you very much, mate, for coming on. Really do appreciate you coming on to give your point of view on Leeds in the game. Mike isn't normally this is where I plug your podcast or your YouTube. Mike isn't a podcaster or a YouTuber at all, so I think he's done a tremendous job coming on this evening. Yes, he's just a good friend of mine that's come on and helped us out. So, Mike, thank you very much, mate. I wish you all the best after Wednesday, and I'm sure I'll speak to you soon.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, everyone, for listening. See you down at Den Wednesday. Bye for now.